Good afternoon, everyone. We have a very exciting discussion today on the topic of virtual reality and augmented reality. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce our panelists a little bit more. Chadwick Turner, immediately to my right, is founder of Soka Reality, and he's worked in the entertainment field as it pertains to virtual reality for over 10 years. He's also a partner at Clever Fox Media, a multimedia creative agency. As I mentioned, he's worked on different projects with different companies, including Amazon Digital Platforms, and has held roles at Mandit VR, Vridio, 21st Century Fox, and Creative Arts Agency. And he is also a graduate of the USC Marshall School of Business. So let's give it up for Chadwick. Two people to my right, I have Taron Lizigub, and he has 2 degrees from UCLA. And so I'm a Trojan, Chadwick's a Trojan, and so you're a little outnumbered here, but it's a great university as well. He's the founder of Rodent Inc., a platform for developing virtual and augmented reality applications. And his passion is democratizing this field. And he's doing that through mechanisms like applications that are focused on web-based VR technology so that anyone can program virtual reality and augmented reality. Born in Yerevan, Armenia, he moved to Glendale at the age of 11. And interesting note, he's involved with Knox Labs, and that is affiliated with the organization that has the Google VR Partners Program. And actually, fun fact, over 20% of the Google Cardboard VR devices came out of Glendale. So perhaps he can tell us a little bit more about that. So the first thing I'd like to do is actually hand this over to Taron to give us all a demonstration today. And Taron, are we ready for that?
Thank you. Yeah. It worked last second, so hopefully it doesn't break.
Like with all technology, we had to tinker behind the scenes to make sure it's working. This is exciting, cutting-edge stuff. So Taron has been hard at work and making sure it's all set up and ready to go.
Okay, if you guys, you can take out your phones, connect to demo.rodin.io, so this link.
So it's demo.rodin.io.
Connect to...
And have them launch that on their browsers?
Yeah, just browser, and whoever's not connected. I'll mirror it here. Okay. So you should be seeing this screen.
Is everyone starting to see that screen when they load it up? Thumbs up? Oh, very good.
Okay. Let me see. Obviously, it's not working. One sec, guys, sorry. Okay, did it start on your phones?
Not yet.
Okay.
All right, so raise your hand as soon as it starts so that we can see.
So the idea is that all of you guys will be minions when you look at each other, and you'll see me as Gru on stage.
There it is, you guys have it?
So you should see me if you point your phone at me. Yeah, connection's a little finicky here, so.
Yeah, so this is contingent on the internet connection here, but it looks like you guys are seeing it. You can look around, rotate, and see in 360.
So now
So you can look behind you, you can look above you.
I'm going to shoot some of you guys. Fly.
Are those Nerf balls you're shooting?
Huh?
Are those Nerf balls that you're shooting?
Yes. Firework. Okay. So, take you guys to another place. So the idea is that to bridge this between devices, so you don't have to install anything. You just open your link on your browser, and you're in the same VR environment as I am. Can make it snow. Take it to another place. It's like a presentation hall. We can interact with each other. This is Armenia. I had to put that in there.
Nice. It's cheaper than a plane ticket to Armenia, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, much.
Awesome.
Yeah, cool. That's the demo.
Very good. Thank you so much, Tom. So before we officially begin, I want to poll the audience. How many of you have used virtual reality before? A lot of you. That's great. How many of you have used augmented reality before? Less of you. How many of you have no idea what augmented reality is? Great. So there's a few. So the first question I'm going to ask Chadwick is, real quick, just from a high level, what are the differences between virtual reality and augmented reality?
Yeah, so the easiest way, how I describe this to friends, family, clients, is imagine a spectrum, fully opaque, 100% you can't see. We're going to virtualize something. That's almost the definition of virtual reality. I'm going to take you to outer space. I'm going to put you on the Millennium Falcon. I take your sights and sounds, everything. As we go down that spectrum and start giving some transparency, and you start seeing the real world, you hear all these terms: mixed reality, augmented reality, and depending on the people on the panel, this is a different panel than another panel I was on. People argue over what's VR, what's AR, what's MR, what's XR. It's like, okay, it's immersive media, it's a spectrum, virtual reality, no one really questions. It's fully opaque, it's 100% virtual. As you go down that path and layer information, or layer an experience on the real world, you start getting into the world of mixed reality and augmented reality. Best example of augmented is the AR mode on Pokemon Go. People always use that as the example, but it is an important one. It took 3 years for Facebook to get 50 million people. It took Pokemon Go 19 days. So it was that huge moment. They still print money on that game. Even if you're not playing it, a lot of people still are. And the interesting thing about that game was that technology had been in your pocket for 7 years. What it took was a compelling piece of content to force people through word of mouth to play with their friends and have that moment. Star Wars, that technology had existed. He invented a lot of it, but he put things together in a way that was so compelling that it drove people and created the modern blockbuster. So that's really what VR, AR, MR, and all these words are. It's just a different version of transparency. And what you just showed with web VR is showing you don't necessarily need the application layer. Your browsers will still potentially be your #1 way of consuming content, including immersive media.
Thank you so much. Taron, tell us about some of the projects that you've worked on in the VR space and how they're developing and how you see things moving in the future with respect to VR.
Thank you. Most of it has been, this is on, yeah? Okay.
Yes.
So most of the early on projects have been this one-off projects. What I mean by that is agencies doing ads, essentially, where the app itself is the ad, and lack of content. It's a problem we're facing in the field, but it's okay. So most of them have been these localized experiences where you would use it only once, download it on your phone, or on a more high-end headset like this one, games. We worked a lot on these one-off experiences where, like, for example, Coors Light would want a demo to engage their customers more, clients more at a bar. they would use a virtual reality activation. But these are just, you don't use them again. They're throwaway experiences. So what we're trying to do, move towards web-based VR, why we're champion of it, is really democratizing the development of it and accessibility of it. So now to develop a virtual reality application, anywhere from low end like 50 to 250,000. You need a developer that has 3D gaming background, a lot more, so one developer would cost you around 100,000. So we're trying to lower that entry-level gap.
Very good. And speaking of democratization of this, Chadwick, you and I were talking earlier today. You said just in the last week or two, there's been some significant developments with some really low-cost devices. So tell us about that. Tell us about, for the person who may not have experienced this yet, other than maybe an advertisement or somewhat of a gimmicky thing. Tell us first about those new hardware developments that have come out, and what is that going to mean for the average user experiencing VR and AR?
Sure. I think, who was here for the FinTech panel? Raise your hand. Okay, so incredible panel, and some of the concepts they were talking about, it's true in our industry as well. They were referencing AI, right? Artificial intelligence. Where do I go for that? What startups are disrupting the space? And they're like, the Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Googles of the world are hiring the best in artificial intelligence to create that future. There might be some startups that could be acquired for some really cool idea that could supplement the big guys. But in our space of virtual reality and augmented reality, it's these same players. They have the billions in their bank account to lose money over the next 5 years to truly disrupt this space. So Android and iOS, so people, most common question I get is, what should I invest in to make money in VR? Well, a lot of these market capitalization of these companies are just astronomically high as is. But once again, Facebook today, if you look at your news feed, who uses Google News for their news? Okay, under the technology section, there's going to be a lot of Facebook announcements today. They announced today a $200 headset launching in Q1 next year that is the equivalent, if not faster, better, stronger than what you've probably heard of from Samsung, which is the Gear VR. That's usually $1,000, smartphone plus headset, roughly about 1,000. $200. Now we're starting to get into the realm of, I just bought my kid, I bought myself an Xbox, it's $500.
So this is a high resolution.
It's a high resolution
very high
mobile
resolution
solution.
Virtual reality solution that you can wear without having to put your Samsung phone in it, without having to buy a $1,000
Yeah, and
device.
it's strategic for them because they don't want to be in a corner where Google owns the end-to-end. So Facebook is trying to own the experience. So how many of you open Facebook on a consistent basis? I mean, it's probably one of the most consumed, if not the consumed application. So imagine a world where the virtual world is owned by Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. That's the experience. Now, there are fancier headsets. These are the tethered headsets. You notice the big cords and cables up here? Those are $1,000 and they're going to get faster, better, stronger too. But for mobile consumption, there are two things that you will see in the next 18 months. Cheaper mobile VR headsets, likely just from Apple, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, and maybe even Amazon, and then AR smart glasses. Those are the products that are going to drive this industry. This thing is 3-4 years from being everybody needs to have a strategy in this space, but for the next 18 months, you're just going to see more and more products from other companies, and then eventually Apple will design whatever the Ray-Ban Wayfair AR glasses are, and if you don't have them, you're actually going to be at a severe disadvantage from your colleagues and friends.
Yeah, it's just surviving now.
You need it. Who here doesn't have a smartphone? And if you do, that's awesome, but who doesn't? Okay, it's awesome. Like, I want that existence. I actually need my smartphone. I cannot do my business without a smartphone. In the very near future, you will not be able to not be wearing your glasses.
So on that note, Tadon, take us through, now that we've kind of identified that this is going to get faster, better, and cheaper being the operative word here. Tadon, take us through some of the things that you see in terms of content. So I know that you've been involved in gaming to a degree. You've been involved in different experiences that might bring humans into an experience that they wouldn't otherwise be able to see in an earthly way. Tell us about that, and just content-wise, where do you see it going, and what's really happening in that space?
Yeah, I think power of VR is when you're connected with someone else. When you're in the same space, experiencing it with another human being, or another AI-powered thing. So it's that connectedness that brings, because what happens is with your 2D devices, your phones, we're able to capture with the hardware about 2-3 senses in essence, like vision, sound, motion, some kind of. With VR headsets, we were able to capture more senses, haptic feedback, touch, much more motion. So it's about 3.5, 4 senses. So it's similar to our own senses. Like here, I'm sharing this experience with you because I know you guys all have the same senses. Like I know what I'm projecting is being processed. So with VR, we're able to capture this much more. So recreating this experience, so connecting in VR. So content, it's not necessarily going to be content as in an app or thing. It's this existence of a metaverse, this new type of an evolution of the web, where you, for example, like Wikipedia in VR, right? You would be able to interact with what you're learning about. Let's say I want to learn about Newton's second laws. I can enable math mode and then play actually with the apple as it's falling down and then see the equations and play with the equations. So I'm adding another dimension to interactivity. So it's that way I see it heading.
So it's almost like before Apple FaceTime, if you go back 15 or 20 years, that didn't exist. People would say, oh, so we're having cameras on the phones, we have the internet bandwidth, so what? Showing people Apple FaceTime is like, oh, aha, I can FaceTime with my cousin in a different country. And now we're going to have this to a different degree. Chadwick,
Yeah, we're at like the Gordon Gekko 1980 cell phone moment. People that try it go, oh, it's cool, how much? Oh, no, thanks, I don't need it. I have a landline, totally fine for me. Then it gets faster, stronger, Nokia shows up. Who played Snake back in the day? Brick Breaker on the Blackberries. Then 2007, the iPhone launches. It's so cool. And that's only a decade ago. And now we're at iPhone 10, right?
Sorry, yeah. Like, look back, like 5 years from now, we're going to look back and see like us wearing these big things on our heads, thinking we're cool. Yeah. And it's so horrible. Like,
watching you do the demo, that is like the 1,000th demo I've seen. But I still think for the crowd, if you haven't actually seen someone put on a Vive, my first instinct would be, tech's not ready. It's not ready yet. Look at that huge headset. And I'm telling you, in the past 3 years, who had a Light-Bright? I know I'm asking a lot of questions, but I'm trying to understand. Remember Light-Brights? You put the Christmas lights in? 3 years ago, that's what the headset experience felt like. It felt like strapping a Light-Bright to your face. You had no idea what you were seeing, but you got inspired. And for those of us that loved the first Oculus DK1, we quit our jobs and moved to this industry and focused our time on it. And now they're getting fancy, they're getting mobile, and that's 3 years. Imagine 10 years.
So let's talk about the big, bulky device on our head. So that's virtual reality. That means we're completely immersed in another world or a game or some kind of an application. Let's talk about augmented reality now. So you mentioned, I believe Ray-Ban has one, if I heard you correctly. There's devices where they could be like sunglasses or regular glasses where they're completely transparent other than a projection on them. So tell us how augmented reality would work with applications.
So I'll do a quick one. So the Ray-Ban example is kind of my go-to. I think the Ray-Ban Wayfarer is the iconic California sunglass, and Apple has their own little skunkworks that is working on their glass technology. Google has publicly released their technology, the Google Glass from 2012, Project Tango, Nant, and now it's called AR Core, right? So glass is the future. When people are talking about screens and things like that, what they're doing is miniaturizing for the best way to describe it is a little projector in the side of your glass that will bounce on little pieces of glass that will hit your actual lens. So crystal clear definition of the information. Microsoft's version of this is called the HoloLens, or the Microsoft Holographic Platform. So that's their new Windows Holographic Platform's the operating system's name. Now, as much as these are just names and tools, what they tell you is that, once again, all those big behemoths of technology, the people that you no doubt probably have one of their products in your pocket, are hyper-focused on this space. So the AR side of it is going to be slick, cool sunglasses, and they exist today. The best example, if you want to see a company that has them for sale, ODG. For like $1,000, you can buy AR glasses. You can look at your emails, the weather. Super simple stuff. If people remember what the iPhone had before the App Store, it was an email client, a calculator, weather, stocks, and the basic experiences that we're all kind of like throw into probably a folder called utilities. And then the App Store opened up. So imagine folks like yourself that can create all these third-party experiences on top of these big platforms. That's where the money's at. So if anybody's here to be like, well, how can I break into this? If you want to build a platform, go for it. I worked at Amazon. Lots of smart people. Good luck. They're well capitalized and eager to win everything, as well as Apple and Microsoft and folks. But they're always looking for compelling things to add on top of their stack. And that's where you come in and I go, you know, you're not looking to reinvent necessarily the browser, but the experiences available in it, that's a huge lucrative opportunity.
Yeah, I actually don't like glasses. Like I wear glasses too, but I don't like glasses as a wearable and that leading like the augmented evolution. Like it's, yeah, over time, the screen has just gone closer to your eyes. And closer it's gotten, it's encompassed the other screens in it. Right? You had a big TV that was displaying one channel, and then that TV can be simulated in a browser. And then the screen got closer in VR and AR. It's much closer. I can simulate hundreds of TVs, hundreds of computers in that time. So it's eaten the prior devices. So I think, but I just don't like the idea of wearing it. Like it's.
So where do you see it going if it's not going to be a screen that like a glasses where it's projected on to augment?
But you say you don't like it. But do you think it's going to happen?
I think it's going to happen. That's the thing. Like, but that what you said before, like that, we don't really have a way to change the momentum. It's because there's big players changing it. Before, like in the startup world, is you had a startup innovating, and then market caught up. Bigger companies would come and buy out the startup, and so there was innovation. But as you said, like it's bigger companies innovating now. They have deeper pockets, so they're setting the trend. So we are going to see the glasses. Best is it's going to end up as a neural lace.
So before it gets into the neural network, do either of you guys see it moving into a contact lens that we're able to wear?
Yeah, so DARPA has this technology, or at least the publicly aware stuff, where you can put little lenses on contact or screen. They're just expensive, right? So it's from tactical. In 1987, NASA had what looks like the Oculus Rift, and then it gets to practical. So the government funds a lot of cool stuff that we eventually see in the consumer area. And what you're talking about of, you know, neural networks and being able to actually tap in, there are three things that we don't fully understand: the deepest oceans, the greatest extent of space, and the human brain. When we figure that out, you're going to see rapid growth in biohacking. So when people say, I'm going to be the Amazon of this, the Facebook of that, I go, well, good luck, because guess what? They're going to try to be that, and they're, once again, very well capitalized. But the interesting part, the place that if I was going to start a company to try to become one of those big 100 billion plus behemoths, is I understand biology, I understand user experience and technology. How can I build a bridge between the two? That right there is the future. Like it or not, that's happening, and it's up to us to be aware of what's happening and try to steer the ship to, you know, moral consciousness and making sure it's good for people. I thought the last presentation was incredible, and I think folks like that being at the forefront and being at places like this speaking is super important, because it needs to be accessible to all. It needs to have some sort of, I mean, I assume half the audience was affected by Equifax, so it needs to have some sort of layer of protection for us, because now we're getting closer and closer to recording our daily experiences via this technology. How are we protected? So yeah, it's within the next 18 months, you will see a commercially viable product from one of the big five that you can purchase. And that doesn't even include this $6 billion entity that has been invested in named Magic Leap. So you want to see something really cool that Google and Alibaba have invested into, based in Florida? They haven't even shown a product. And they've gotten roughly, what, $6 billion? Yeah. And they're planning on launching something within 6 months, is the rumor. So incredibly exciting time for our industry. And for everybody out there, VR versus AR will definitely affect whatever you do. You could say I work in farming, agriculture. We could talk about 1,000 ways AR is going to affect you. So it's good to at least be aware of it. Set a Google News alert for augmented reality and be aware, because it will disrupt you.
So,
And
so Todd,
sorry, yeah,
go
I
ahead.
agree with him on that. It's not just a virtual reality, augmented reality revolution. It's like this three verticals: the VR, AR, artificial intelligence, and blockchains. I don't even like calling it artificial intelligence because it's natural. We're creating it. So it's the convergence of all these three that's creating this new machine consciousness. That's what we're going to be interacting with, and it's very vital, I think, at this time to make sure we infuse it with as much humanness and kindness as possible, so we may meet as friends and like we meet this new existence as with trust.
You've seen the problem that they've been doing, though. They've been scraping the internet for things to throw at the AI, and
Yeah.
the AI immediately becomes the
But that's-
worst human ever.
That's the thing, Chad. Like I think it's a flaw in our current era because I define it as like a logical era, age of reason, and where everything is defined, where it's an age of technology, age of science, where emotion doesn't, or if intuition doesn't have as much of a place. So we're creating this consciousness from an era of logic, where we're logically telling it how it should, what algorithm it should use to feel. But now when we're feeling, I'm feeling at the present. I'm not, when I define afterwards that I'm feeling, I'm giving it something. So I think that's an inherent flaw of us creating from this era. So we have to find a way to bring back like philosophy into tech, bring back Renaissance, romance back into logic.
And Todd, you were mentioning earlier the democratization of development, and that's happening across programming for all different types of technology, not just VR. But tell us more about, tell us a story about that in terms of, you know, the person that is an unlikely programmer that now is able to program something in this. Like, what is that? Is that like a grandmother that can design something in the future in a VR, AR way? What's something that's an off-the-wall story that would bring us into perspective with your thinking?
See, I've been trying to find that killer app too. So the way we're making it open to any website developer. So anyone that does website development, mostly doing JavaScript. So opening it up to all like 50 million developers, where you don't have to know much about 3D environments, 3D rendering. You can just, as you're developing a website, you develop a VR, AR application in under 10 minutes. So I don't have a good example of something, like most of them are just very like cookie cut stuff, like a video gallery of 360 stuff. We did something cool, like we sent, so our pitch deck, when we send it to investors, we wouldn't send it as a PDF. We created our own deck, a VR deck, where we would meet the investor on our deck. And like in the browser, they would just use their phone and we could see their avatar moving and communicate like that. So yeah, there are most of it is cookie cut right now.
We've all seen those examples of like walking through the grocery store and augmented reality will be able to tell you that apples are on sale, or let you know to watch out for someone's cart that's coming down your aisle or something like that. So I think it'll be interesting to see how all that develops as the technology gets cheaper. And right now, I mean, I think depending on how you want to say it, I think we're like in 1994 of the internet, where it's like
Yeah.
few people have it, not everyone. It's the cousin that has it that's unique. It's not something that's ubiquitous yet.
A cool one story that I've seen is where the headset has an input that connects to your brainwaves, measures your brainwaves. So you control VR, AR by thinking. And this can have some cool applications. I was thinking where you could use AR to change habits, where it would sense when a habit is being triggered, and then it would trigger to a physical activity that you're doing to trigger that habit before you catch it yourself. So there's some cool stuff.
The best AR app is probably on your phone right now. Open Amazon. There's a photo, there's a camera icon in it. Hold it to any product in your home, and it will immediately say, oh, did you want more Campbell's soup? Did you want a MacBook Pro? Like, it's in your pocket. So that's augmented reality in the greatest definition. It's being able to quickly tell you something that you like. Shazam's another good one. People discount voice and
Snapchat.
all the time. Yeah, Snapchat. Like, it's all around you. It's
Have you
already
guys
here.
seen the IKEA app now, where
Yeah,
you can
places.
you can see if furniture will fit in your house with accuracy of how big it would be. You could see if that chair or that couch will fit. So it's coming, and I mean, certain people have the technology now, but everyone with iOS 11 has it now. So it's just going to roll out quicker and quicker. This conversation's been going so great that we're squeezed for time on questions. But if anyone has a question or two, let's get those out. And if not, these gentlemen will be around for the rest of today's Tech Week. So any questions in the audience for these gentlemen? Gentlemen in the middle of the audience.
I wanted to ask if you know anything about holographics, like have you heard of Layer Ink? They're working on holographic technology, so it might be an alternative to, or another thing apart from VR and AR.
Is some of the cool holographic technology I've seen is actually just goes on your like iPad tablet. It's 4 different direct images that reflect off glass, so you can basically elicit something that is floating in the real world. Imagine that Death Star scene where you're trying to, in Star Wars where you see it floating. Another way to mimic that is with water vapor. You can like basically project off of it. Yeah, so immersive media with VR, AR, we just have this simple, so everybody that wants to start a company has to back into a problem. What problem am I trying to solve? Hopefully that problem involves some sort of revenue that you can actually build a business around because no one wants to invest in someone's passion, okay? Be passionate, but also have some sort of problem that you're solving. With this, we have 2 billion plus smartphones that are capable, potentially, maybe a billion, but 2 billion roughly that can do immersive media in people's pockets. And so what you saw with Pokemon Go is they just started printing money because they found a really compelling way to use this. So I think with holographic technology, super cool. The problem that you're going to face with that is what everybody keeps talking about VR. How do I make money in it? Well, there's about 1 million headsets for HTC and Vive and Oculus Rift and 1 million PlayStation. That's really not that big of a marketplace when you start talking Nintendo sold 100 million Wiis. So that's really what we're up against right now is what do you make content for? And holographic, super cool, but for the industry to survive, you have to focus on what's in people's pockets, and currently that's a smartphone.
Red is making the Red smartphone.
Oh, the holographic
Yeah, I don't know what
phone,
to make
yeah.
of it. That's the only one I know.
That is the Layer Incorporated. It's a spin-off from HP.
I'm super excited. Do you work there?
Red have partnered with them.
Do you work there? I hear about it. It's a $1,000 smartphone, looks super cool. Red is the predominant with Alexa and Ari for great professional grade cameras, but it's like Magic Leap, haven't seen it.
Let's see if there's one more question out there, and then so in the back.
And if you guys find us afterwards, you can.
Yeah, final question for this audience, and then afterwards these gentlemen are going to stick around.
Hi. Can you go over again some of the companies or startups in terms of investment for like stock? I know you mentioned a few.
Well, so the fintech people taught me very well. I am not an official investment advisor. Whatever I'm supposed to say, record that too. If you want to look at the blue chips of the tech sector, you can't, it's Apple, it's Amazon, it's Microsoft, it's Facebook, it's Google. You cannot invest in a lot of the other cool companies like Magic Leap, so you got to be an institutional investor at that point. But the other cool spots, and I don't mind sharing my thoughts on this, these are my thoughts alone, do not stake your home on it, but a lot of the eyewear manufacturers, if they're publicly traded, Luxottica is a name you might have heard of, but probably not. They own most of the cool sunglasses that you probably are wearing or have in your pocket. The other ones are like glass companies. Look at Corning. Corning is a company that, I was like ranting about this a year and a half ago, and Apple gave them publicly $200 million to build out some cool stuff, and I wonder what that might be. So look at the glass manufacturers, because the future of this, I'm a big believer in top-level domains. It's my little fun side project. So .com, there's a lot of .somethings. .glass is also a very big top-level domain. So you'd imagine what they're going to do with that on the Google, Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft side. But yeah, so I think that, look, if you're looking to play in the space, you can't go wrong with some of the big blue chips.
But I'd imagine it's also kind of tough to call, right? Like in the early days of the internet, you'd say Yahoo all the way.
Oh yeah, go
Invest
Yahoo.
in Yahoo. So.
If you can in the early, yeah, if this is the early days of the internet, I'd be like, go GeoCities. It's gonna be big.
We're
They get
taking
that
that
joke?
investment. So Rodan,
Or these guys.
Rodan is doing a round, so
Are you doing an ICO?
we
Talk to the
wanted
fintech
but
guys.
Didn't fit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be on the lookout for that. Thank you guys both for your time today. This was a great discussion. Thanks to the audience. And that concludes this part of the program.